Greetings! It is I, Tantus Narayan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion of the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th Ed D&D. We've been talking about information from the DMG, Dungeon Master's Guide. Let's talk magic items. Alright, we've gone over some basics. Magic items have been brought before, but there are some details we do want to discuss. Let's start with Rarity. Rarity is a good judgment of a lot of things about a magic item. It can go from anywhere from being a common magic item to legendary status that only the greatest of heroes traditionally have. A common item? Well, it's something that you could probably find pretty much anywhere. You can go to an apothecary and find a potion of healing. Most of those are common. They're pretty easy to discover. They're really the exception to most of these rules, because as soon as you hit uncommon, well, uncommon items are hard to craft by themselves, let alone when we start talking about legendary. Legendary items are so crazy, they're almost unique most of the time. The secrets of their construction most of the time have been lost to ages, that some ancient civilization built the apparatus Aqualsh and let it out into the world, and now they're gone, and the secret of its construction gone too. So there might be only one of those in existence. So you can see how that's the extreme end, while common is, well, it is common, but uncommon. And anything up to in between common and legendary, starting with that uncommon, even then you just don't find them as much because they are so hard to create still. It is still very difficult to create an uncommon item. It's one of the reasons that most magic items tend to be considered as wealthy or powerful antiques. That magic sword that your character might get at some point in time, that might be a family heirloom, that once you've proven yourself worthy of it, your father or your grandfather hands down to you. That might be a great way of getting it, and a great storyline. Magic item rarity is also a very important thing because it judges power. Common item is far less powerful than a legendary item. Legendary items are awesome sources of incredible power, and everything in between is measured there. Traditionally, you won't be getting a magic item till you reach a certain level. Every rarity will tell you at what level it will be appropriate to start having your characters get this type of magic item, this level of magic item. Granted, there is some leeway here, because it does say these different times, and it might be that you might want to go on that lower end or the higher end. There is an important factor here when we're talking about this entire thing. You can ignore this. Whatever campaign you're building, whatever world you're building, it's yours. If you feel that some kind of legendary item should fall into your character's hands, and there's a good reason based upon the story for it, do it. Because that's going to be one of the focuses of your story, is them getting that. That's why you're building it in. So you can easily do this kind of combination. Throw an item that should not be in their hands at the level they're at into their hands. They're probably going to attract a lot of attention from a lot of people they don't want at their level. And that's going to be part of the big story that you're telling. So, again, it's a good way of judging things, but it isn't necessary. Now, when it comes to, of course, perhaps bartering with a magic item, rarity also judges a general price. Now, each rarity will have a price range, and it will be up to your dungeon master to specifically determine what the price is in the circumstances of both the item and where you're either attempting to buy it from or sell it from. And we're not even talking about buying and selling as something that could be an option in your campaign world. We'll talk about that in a second. We're just assuming that, let's say you could, rarity is here to give you an idea of what prices it should be in general between. These are prices for permanent magic items. If you have something like a scroll or a potion, which is used up, assume half that price. Now let us talk about buying and selling, because we just brought that up. Buying and selling magic items could be an option in your world. Traditionally, there aren't enough magic items to have a stable shop. As I said, something like common ones, which can be everywhere, you can go into the apothecary, a general store, and you might see it on a shelf. Other items, not so much. If a shop would have a magic item, for one thing, they're probably not going to be advertising it. They're inviting people to steal it. And even once you want to purchase it from them, they might not be willing to take coin. They might want services. And so you're basically fronting a line of, it's getting more difficult to get this from a direct shop. Now, if you go to some kind of large city where there might be a academy, whether it's like Fighter Academy, Wizard Academy, maybe even a very large temple, groups like this may be willing to buy and sell magical items. They might have accumulated some that they might be willing to part. Again, services might be required, not just money. Or they might be willing to purchase them for a price. So you can see there is these little connections there. If it's a world that you're building where adventurers are common, that are retrieving all these ancient magical items from ruins and temples and old civilizations, maybe there's a market for them. At this point in time, if you build a market for magic items, treat it like our world's art markets, where they have auctions or special events that would sell specifically magic items. These, though, will, of course, attract thieves. Just like with art shows that we have today, have to worry about security. Now, as difficult as it seems like buying a magic item, selling it is really more difficult. The fact is, though I have this magic sword I want to sell, finding a buyer is the trouble. Finding someone that guy over there, that fighter over there, he might want to purchase this. Can he afford it? Probably not. So that's where that in-between activities, that downtime activity of selling a magic item that we talked about before, comes in handy. So once you're looking and buying and selling, traditionally you might want to go for fantastical locations. Maybe a bazaar in the city of Brass, or an auction house in Sigil. Places where it's fantastic and amazing. You could put these in any city really you want, a bazaar or a auction house that seems fantastic and magical and a place beyond imagination to sell magic items. But because this is a difficulty, even in a world where adventurers are more common in finding these, you should make it feel like it's something special, something beyond the normal. If you're adding any of this in, you might have to think about regulation. If there is an auction house that primarily deals in magic items, then of course the local government's gonna get into it in some way. Maybe taking a cut of it, maybe seeing who purchases what for whatever reason. And as soon as it's regulated, of course you get the other end of the spectrum, the black market. So in the same city where you might be able to purchase that, there's probably going to be a black market, which maybe that's where your characters want to get their supply of magic weapons, or sell their magic weapons and items. You have to consider that in your world, you might even have special wizards or artificers or various people that can craft items. Do it for whatever local government they are. I could have a government that might want to supply my military with magical equipment, and if I have the money to spare, I might be hiring people on to do it. These are possibilities that could exist that add to the story. Now, let's talk, of course, about identifying a magic item, because the fact is, magic items come in two forms. They come in the form of, it looks exactly like the normal version of that item. I could pick up a sword, and I would not be able to identify it's magical by its look. On the other hand, I could pick up a sword, and it's wreathed in magical flames and glowing with runes all the time. That's basically what you get, is either it's not really noticeable, or it's blatantly obviously magic. Regardless, as soon as I pick up these two items, I get a feeling there's something special about them. As soon as I pick up a magical item, just holding it makes me feel it's got that magic to it. Of course, I don't know what it does yet, but I know it's magical. So, some ways that you can identify how this is magical. For one thing, the Identify spell. That's a pretty easy one. I cast it, I learn what this does. Another way, I could take a short rest while having this item close to me, in contact with me, and at the end of that short rest, I've basically gotten a connection with it, kind of gotten a feel of it. I know what it does. We hung out long enough that I kind of got a feel for you. Hey, cool, you're awesome. I know all your properties, I know how to use you. You know, pointy end goes in, fire comes out of them, that sort of thing. Now, it's actually really easy to identify potions. We can skip all that. I take a potion, I uncork it, tap, tap, tap. There's a potion of healing. Done. Potions are incredibly easy to identify. Maybe your magic item has some kind of clue to what it does. A ring could have a little command word in here that tells you, oh, I have to speak this word to activate it. Or maybe if it's something like a ring of featherfall, it might look like this ring is a bunch of feathers linked around your finger. These are both things that will, of course, hint at you what it does, and you just have to kind of maybe use those as clues. And the last thing you could do is, of course, experiment. I could put on that magic ring and just sort of play around with it, see what it's doing, you know. If it's something like, say, like a ring of jumping, you can say, like, as you're walking around, you may be like, I feel like I got a little spring to my step, you know. I feel like I could leap a little. I've kind of just experimented around, played around with it, figured out what it does. That works too. Sometimes, depending on what actually the ring does. If it's not such an obvious effect, you might not notice it. Now, it is an optional rule for you DMs out there to, of course, eliminate identifying the magic item with a short rest next to it. This means you either have to use the identify spell, or you have to experiment with it, hopping along with that ring of jumping, or maybe some combination of both of them to sort of figure out what this does. But that's it for today's episode. We talked about magic items. I hope you enjoyed learning about the rarity of magic items and what this means for both buying, selling them, and of course, identifying them. You want to know what these things are? It's a very good thing. In the next episode, though, we're going to move on to some more information. We're first going to talk about attunement, basically connecting you and your magic item pal together, and then cursed magic items, which, you probably don't want, because they do bad things to you. Ooh, I feel like I can't hit something as much with this cursed magic sword. I didn't know it was cursed until I picked it up. But I hope you have a good day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.